Hello friends, Mr. Squiggs here. Welcome back to another thrilling episode of Watching Paint Dry, I mean Soviet SimCity. We are playing on the new realistic mode recently released, and it is just punishing. You can't do anything, even if you have cash. And because we've taken the hardest possible settings, we don't have that much cash. So probably people are going to freeze and starve, but we're going to do our best to avoid that. It's the 7th of May, 1960, and we're gonna keep on trucking here. So one of the first things I wanted to do that I was thinking about in the last episode was I might rename some of these towns, just because for me it becomes a little bit easier to remember where things are if they're names I relate to. On top of that, I can't pronounce most of the names of most of the towns that come in here. They're all in Eastern European languages I don't speak. So being Canadian, I'm going to base most of the city names on cities in Canada. And we'll have some French names. Part of the idea is that it's supposed to be a fictional republic, right? It's supposed to feel a little bit foreign. And we'll have some French names that will seem foreign to those of you, most of you out there on the internet. So the way I'm thinking of doing it is I'm inspired a little bit to have this northern part near this border with the West to be our Anglophone Ontario region. So maybe I'll rename this to something like Windsor. I'm well aware there's a famous Windsor Castle in the UK. This is meant to be Windsor, Canada. And why don't we just say Detroit is what's across the border, and there we go. Oh, this one's actually in Windsor, this custom house. Nice. So what else is a town name from Ontario we could give to these little towns? Vira. You are now Ajax. Volcanadeni. You are now Toronto. And I'm thinking sort of everything south of this river. I've been using north and south just as up and down on the mini-map. But it occurs to me that this is meant to be Eastern Europe. So it is feeling kind of backwards that the West, the borders with the West are in the northeast, and the borders with the Soviet bloc are in the southwest. But whatever, for simplicity's sake, the north is going to be everything above this river. I'm going to kind of pretend that that's Ontario. And south is going to be Quebec, the French-speaking province of Canada. So here, why don't we do Whitby? I'll just rename these quickly so they're things I can relate to and remember where things are on this map. And I thought there was a cute little town around here. Singriapol. You are now Uxbridge. Is there a town right on the river? Maybe like here. Cornell. Interesting. And there's another little one over here, isn't there? Modred, right. So I might call Cornell Ottawa, being right on the river. So these first two towns, I just said south of the river would be Quebec, but Ottawa and Kingston are kind of in the middle. They're close to the border between Ontario and Quebec, and we'll find some nice, cute French names for all of these towns. What do we say? I think closest to the border here is gonna be Sherbrooke. Vraska. You're gonna be... I think you're gonna become Quebec. longest names where there's the least going on. That's how I like to do it. And Ballaru, you're one of the bigger towns. I'm really hoping you don't die out in this famine conditions we've got going on, but there we go. You'll be Montreal. And maybe up on the river, I'll call you Trois-Rivières. And are we good there? We might be good there. Oh, way in the middle of nowhere? That's easy. Shawinigan. Okay. So I might have missed a couple, but basically before I develop too much, I'm going to try to name the towns something interesting, meaningful to me. This Sejov town, I don't know if this one's worth renaming, but you know what? There is a town in Quebec called Asbestos, and Sejov, you're it. My gosh, I really feel for the people here. I don't think there will be people here long. We are bracing ourselves for a steep population decline. So, in the last episode, I was working up in this Ontario corner in this town we've just renamed Windsor, and I've given it all, or at least I've planned all the infrastructure they should need at a most basic level just to survive day to day. The one thing that's missing is that we are planning to dump our raw sewage into the river here, and it's a little too steep for me to build the discharge. That's not a big problem. It's relatively inexpensive to do terrain modification, a small amount. At least this kind of smoothing should be fine. I just need to have a free excavator in one of these parking lots here, which I don't have right now. It's out working on various construction projects, so we'll keep an eye out, and when more of the projects around town have completed, we will come back. I'll just see what's right. We've got a lot going on here. We've got a lot built already. So when that's completed, it should return to one of these parking lots, and then it'll be available for us to do some terrain modification. It's got a decent size. I think they give you almost 1,000 meters, almost a kilometer. So it ought to be close enough for us to do that. So for now, I'm just gonna wait and let things go on there. But we need to do something in our southern Quebecois region here, because we are going to be missing some critical infrastructure. I've planned a shop in both of these towns. I think I've even got electrical substations planned, but we don't have any water planned yet for Sherbrooke or for Quebec. So that's going to be problematic. Yeah. And I don't think the shops will work without it anyway. And I'm noticing that not all the offices are assigned to these constructions, so let's just double check that. We do have a big long power line under construction, so that should be good. So without further ado, I'm going to build some water and sewage, at least for these two towns, Sherbrooke and Quebec, and we'll go from there. What I'm thinking is I'm gonna sacrifice a lake. I think this little lake out here in the middle of nowhere is sadly going to become a dumping ground for raw sewage. I don't want it to be this one because I think this is the source of clean water, probably for Sherbrooke, probably also for Montreal. Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. And then this little lake is probably the source for Quebec and Trois-Rivières. So I might do it 2 and 2 in terms of fresh water, but then it looks like I'm gonna need 3 sewage discharges, maybe just 2. I don't want to build a sewer from Sherbrooke all the way to the river. But I did say in the last episode that I'm preferring to dump my raw sewage in the river and keep the lakes pristine in the hopes that there is movement in the river, hypothetically, and some of that pollution might disperse. We cannot afford to build water treatment yet. On the way in, yes, absolutely, we're going to build miniature water treatment plants for supplying drinking water, but we won't have sewage treatment at first. So we will want to dump all our raw sewage in one place and keep that separate from our drinking water, if at all possible. So without further ado, okay, so you can probably see me fiddling around here. We're gonna have the same issue that we have in our northwest corner, where probably we're not going to be able to do this without some terrain modification. The footprint of this building is really super specific, and it's a bit more sensitive than the rotation options we have available. Basically, this lake is a bit too round and too shallow. In a way, it's the opposite problem of what we have in the other corner, which is when it's too shallow, you're either too far in the lake or too far on the hill. There's not a clear line. And where there is a clear line, in this case, the lake is a bit too small, so it's too round. So we don't have a straight line to put this along. Maybe on this side of the lake it'll work, for example. No, it's too sensitive. So we will need to do a tiny bit of terrain modification when we have a vehicle available to do that. So it'll be just like the other one. We're going to need to put a really long sewage pipe out to here anyway. So we will see how that goes. Okay, so we've reached an interesting dilemma where normally when we put these buildings very close together, when the difference is small enough, the game will just let you do it, and it will assume that you have the proper slope. In this case, I don't have the proper slope because my pump here at the top is actually lower down. You can kind of see these lines of the hill. and the top of the hill is up this way. And I did this on purpose. I wanted to put my switch up the hill just a little bit to help it be higher than the end point over there. And I know I put a switch anyway, but it's such a long pipe that I wanted to be sure. So in this case, I'm still gonna be able to do this no problem. I just need A, to probably use something more than 5 meters here, and B, to sneak it higher up the hill a little bit. Okay, so you can see what I had to do there. I wanted to have this extra, let me just click here so you can see, running out of inputs and outputs. I wanted to put one more switch just before we build a really long pipe. Whenever I build a really long pipe, whether it's sewage or water, we're setting it in stone. I'm even putting it under this mountain. It's not easy later to come back and break this into two. It's honestly easier to build a bypass or do something else completely different. So here the goal really was to just make sure I have extra inputs in case this town grows at all, so that this pipe can continue being used, handle some growth of the town, and still be fit for purpose years down the line. Especially since it is so long, it's going to represent quite an input. The problem that I've got here, and people could debate the trade-offs, is that the place I want to dump my waste and it's lower down than my town, fine, but my town here is half built on the hill. So some of my infrastructure for the sewage is already on the hill. So I've got these two substations and these two switches down here in the flat part, fine, but to make a more direct tube, a more direct pipe, I wanted to put this switch kind of here up on the hill. But that means that in effect I need my sewage to go uphill before it goes down. So that's why we need so many switches, but it's the trade-offs. These switches are saving us distance, and sewers, they're expensive to build, especially at this early stage when everything we're using has to be imported. It's mostly just concrete is the good news. If we look at what this really long one is made of, a lot of work days, a lot of boards, wooden boards, gravel, and concrete. They're not super expensive. The prefabricated concrete panels, the 208 tons, those are going to be probably the most expensive, as well as work days. Not too concerned about the number of work days, because I believe a road crane or an excavator is actually going to provide a bunch of those. And hey, we've got thousands of unemployed people. They are also going to be brought in to build this. So I do think that the pumps are worth it to save us a little bit of distance. They just use an incredibly small amount of steel and mechanical components. And if it was the choice to instead go all the way around the hill, that could end up being 30%, 40% longer. So I think a couple of pumps is probably worth it. I'm just speculating. This is just how I'm choosing to build it. But I'm just trying to minimize the length of the sewage pipe as much as we can. Okay, so I've got a lot of more work to do before I want to unpause the game. I want to get, at least for Sherbrooke and Quebec, at least water and sewage. So I have minimum one more long sewage line to build, probably along that road, or maybe out to there. And I have at least one water filtration plant. And I'm torn here. I'm just trying to think about how I'm going to do this, and it might be time to boldly and ambitiously try to develop Montreal a little bit. Why? Because it looks like that's going to be the best place to put a filtration plant. If we're looking at Sherbrooke, that's where the water's coming from, the clean drinking water. There's no way I'm going up to this Beaties to source water where we're dumping raw sewage. No way. So it does look like it's this little lake here near Montreal that we are going to use for our drinking water. And if that's the case, then I'm strongly tempted to just to collect the water over here somewhere, have citizens of Montreal who can reach it on foot work in the filtration plant, and then just do a pipe to bring water over to Sherbrooke. So I think that's going to be the play. Of course, this means we are saving Montreal come hell or high water. So I need a bus stop. I need some shops and electrical infrastructure, etc. Right? That's another thing I'm going to end up having to do over here, is some kind of electrical infrastructure, at least for my pump, if not for my discharge. So I might just do sewage for Quebec first, because I've got a similar issue here in Quebec. The best place to get drinking water for Quebec might be this little lake here, which again, much closer to Trois-Rivières. So I'm at the stage now where, before I was thinking, okay, we really need to save a couple of these villages, but we'll see. We'll see how far we can get. I'm a little greedy. I want all four of these. Sherbrooke, Quebec, Trois-Rivières, Montréal. I think I can save all four of them, and I'm now thinking about getting water infrastructure for all four of them. But lots to do before we get to that point. I don't think I'm going to pipe sewage all the way along this road. I don't think I can avoid pumping drinking water this way, but I want to build the shortest sewage lines I can at this stage. So I'm thinking that Quebec's sewage might go out to the river this way, along this road here. So without further ado, I'm gonna do some more building. Okay, so the game gods are telling me that my instinct of dumping in the river is correct, because this is where I'm able to find a natural riverbank that has the right shape, the right steepness, the right everything for me to just plop down a sewage discharge. So that's what we're gonna do now. But yeah, I'm not so sure about how accurate the water pollution is simulated in this game. That's one thing that the SimCities and the cities skylines might be doing better. I'm thinking of the sort of traditional Western themed city builders. They do look at pollution, and in the more recent ones they are separating air from earth, from water, different kinds of pollution. If my understanding is correct, these are all still one in this game, but at least the way they communicate it, pollution is just one thing and you just measure it in one area. However, I do think pollution behaves differently over water than it does over land, which is a bit realistic. But we will end up measuring this and we will find out. Okay, so this is a case where the lake is actually too, not shallow, but the grade is not steep enough. We don't have a clear line between what's in the water and what's out of the water. And so as a result, we can't really place this where the intake is in the water. Too much of the building is also where the intake's out of the water. Where the building's out of the water, the intake is not in the water. So we just need to make it a tiny bit steeper. I think by default, the rivers have the sort of steeper edges. In fact, you can see there's a good example here. If I go anywhere along here, I'm probably not going to be successful because, again, it's a little too gradual of a descent into the water. Whereas if I go somewhere here a little steeper, there you go. Suddenly it works. So this is not a huge problem. I'm not going to take drinking water from the river that we're polluting. I'm still going to go with the lake. I am just going to wait until some more construction projects are complete so that I can use my excavator to change things up there a little bit. So I might actually hold off on the rest of the water infrastructure until we can do that. Okay, so I just want to explain something that I'm doing here, which is that the water pipes don't work by gravity, they work by pressure. They need pumping. The pumps both suck what's behind them and they push to what's in front of them. And the unfortunate thing is they require electricity. So I can do a big long sewage pipe to the river, and as long as the receiver at the other end is lower, that's going to be no problem. It's going to go all the way regardless. So I really just need electricity at the end for my single pump or whatever. Here, to get water from Trois-Rivières down to Quebec, we may need more than one pump. I'm thinking I'm going to need minimum 2 pumps. So that's why I'm actually already plopping down this substation here. I'm hoping I can get this to work with just one substation. And if I am careful, I can put the pumps far enough apart that they are close to the 2 ends that they're serving. And just the one electrical substation between them. So it still strikes me as quite a long pipe here, but we're going to see. Normally it will tell us if it's too long, but I think we're going to get away with that. But in the end, only time will tell. Well, unfortunately, sometimes you hook it all up and the game doesn't tell you it's too long. But sometimes you hook it all up and the pressure's too low. See, normally if I had luxury, I would say we need one more pump around here. But these two close enough together, these two together might be producing enough pressure to get the water to move through the pipes. I'm also committing the cardinal sin here. You notice I'm trying to keep, so far, all the water infrastructure in one part of town. I'm not going to set up distribution of water for Trois-Rivières yet. I want to be super rigid about doing my sewage first. You might have noticed that while I was planning the water for Quebec, I had to go underneath a sewage pipe. And that's sort of the key thing that's going on here, is by doing the sewage first, I ensure that it gets the grade it needs. And then when I need to cross the sewage, well, it's okay if I go over or under, or in this case, it looks like I'm going right through. But I'm sure I pushed the button to make the water pipe go down just a little bit. And the water pipes don't mind. The water pipes can go uphill. That's why they require the electricity to pump to create that pressure. So these 2 substations should serve all of Quebec. I will, of course, add water infrastructure for Trois-Rivières, but as mentioned, I'm going to wait till some of this is built, and I'm going to wait till I've planned my sewage for Trois-Rivières. I don't even have electricity here yet, which is also going to be essential, as well as a shop and a bus station and all kinds. So lots of work left to do around here. I swear that's a real town name. in Quebec. Okay, folks, I'm tempted to push play here, and we're gonna let some constructions can complete, because that's the name of the game here. And at this point, we've got so much planned, it will take a long time. I know there's lots more for me to plan, but I can do it while we get a start on some of this construction here. Okay, folks, we're gonna have to leave it there for today. I've gone ahead and planned some very basic infrastructure for Montreal, and as you can see, it's kind of the first town. It's a bit bigger and a bit more sprawling than some of the other towns, so it might be the first one that truly requires 3 substations for electricity. And we'll see. We'll see next time about water and sewage for Montreal, and hopefully we can get some terrain modification done. I have been thinking about the fact that with everything I've put, my construction offices are overloaded. But actually, we may have a loophole for the terrain modification, which is that your excavator or whatever vehicle's doing the terrain modification does actually not need to be in a construction office. It can be in a road depot. And yes, we are limited with the number of free road depots we have as well, but we're not really using them to full capacity right now. So I can easily just delete one, put it close to where I want, buy a single excavator for a few thousand rubles. It's not going to be a big deal. So I think that's what's going to happen, because I need to do some modification here in Lac de Montagne, and I need to do some modification here in Montreal for sewage and for water respectively. And I haven't even begun to plan Trois-Rivières yet. So stay tuned. We'll have another episode for you soon. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'm Mr. Squiggs.